This is the Finding Business Happy podcast with me, Janelle McGrath, the founder of Market Veep. This show is all about helping you to live your best life inside and outside of work as a leader in business. Because let's face it, what's important is finding your business happy. Thanks for joining us on the Finding Business Happy podcast. Today we're talking about how saying no can be a positive thing. Today, we're going to share some of our stories and learnings of things that we've gone through and how we've learned how to say no and how it's influenced future decisions. And so in life, as we all know, most lessons aren't ones that you ask for. And so some time ago, we had a client who recruited an employee and they still wanted to work with us. And the kicker of the situation was that the employee, they wanted that employee to be our direct point of contact on their team. And so my honest first reaction was WTF, because I'm a human just like you. Pretty upsetting, to say the least. You know, in my 20 plus years of being an entrepreneur, there are many things you learn along the way. And this particular situation went beyond what I would have ever fathomed. And it takes a lot to surprise me at this point. You see a lot at a fast pace, and the learning curve really is sped up. And the client on top of it all was a professional recruiting company, an organization that had received some of the most prestigious awards in the space. And they were about halfway into an annual contract, and they didn't know this employee before our engagement. So there was no prior relationship. And, there's a moment in business that you need to get to where you're really able to draw the line in the sand and say, this is what we stand for, and this is not how we operate as a company. And there's no amount of money that makes this situation okay. In my mind, it was an absolute line. Hard no on all fronts, regardless of how much lost revenue it would cost us by terminating the contract, and regardless of how bad they wanted to continue working with us. In my mind, I thought, if we had agreed to continue working with them, what would that say to other team who were still here? How could we stand behind our values if we looked the other way? How would our team feel if they had to continue to work with this person who'd taken advantage? And so I truly, truly believe that if you're willing to do the hard things when it comes to your values, things like hire by them, fire by them, and lose revenue by them, that really defines your organization. And if you can't do these things, then you're not really living those true values. And maybe it's, that you've picked incorrect values for your organization. But, we have a rule at Market Veep that we don't air people's dirty laundry. We don't divulge details that would embarrass anyone, even if it means if we have to eat it. Even when on the outside, it looks like a simple thing. Many times there are many other pieces that we keep to ourselves, right? Even when someone wrongs us, the right thing to do is let that person leave with dignity, focus on our next steps, and move on. And, there really is no need to share every granular detail with the team or clients. And we've learned many lessons, that particular day. We put in contract safeguards. We added additional company culture vetting processes, and even finding kindness even when you've been violated. But in all honesty, the pride I had in our team for how protective they became and were of Market Veep, our team and our culture was just so impressive. It truly reinforced me why we do what we do and spend so much time focusing on happy. And ultimately, that we made the right decision. People banded together, they found new solutions, and shut down all of the noise. And so if you know someone struggling with something similar, please share this episode to help give them peace of mind and that they're on the right track. So I'll share another one here. So we turned down a $275,000 deal, and I would do it all day, every day. And I encourage you to do so as well. We've spent many years fine-tuning our values, and each iteration has come from a specific situation, a lesson learned, or truly finding what we want to stand for in this world as an organization. And I can honestly say that I would not change any difficulty, hardship, tough lesson, or challenging situation that we've experienced. And there have been a winding road of them over the past 20 years. They help us have grit, focus, force us to push ourselves to think outside the box, and even really drive us towards happy. It works on both the personal and professional levels. In my mind, they each reinforce each other and they challenge each other. They don't work independent. I don't think of it as we live two lives, one for work and one for personal. You have one life to live to the fullest. And I'm thankful for the opportunities we have had that are uncomfortable, exhausting, and even heartbreaking. And, these three things have taught us a great deal about ourselves. They've taught us to get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's part of life, right? Nothing is as easy as a straight line. The sooner that you accept and embrace it, the more open you are to seeing a clear path. It's taught us that even when you're exhausted and you think you can't go any further, deep down, you'll find you've got more reserves than you ever knew if you're fighting for the right things, right? People and happiness. And lastly, it's taught us that even when you're let down, heartbroken, kindness always wins, always. And so the most important thing in any situation is understanding your non-negotiables. And for us, the number one thing is people are always our priority. And for this particular situation, we had what we thought was a great fit client, a great product, great service, responsive. Had aligned goals. And, they got through the sales process, and what happened after felt very different. And unfortunately, there were some moments that the client had been condescending or aggressive or rude in conversation and email. And after some time in conversations, we decided to part ways as it really wasn't a great relationship to be in. There were misaligned goals constantly shifted by their board, next day turnaround requests, respect towards the team, amongst other things. And so after a couple of weeks, the client sent a very remorseful email. And, they were apologizing for the behavior, asking how we could really work together. And again, another moment that really surprised me. I think it takes a very, very big person to acknowledge a mistake, own it, and then say how they're willing to improve and ask for forgiveness openly. It's very honorable, it's vulnerable, and I respect it. And so after, several deep conversations, realignment, revised annual planning, we entered back into this contracting phase. Now, even though the client had already signed an agreement, they wanted to go back and revise original terms, which should be a red flag when we think about what things they want to change, right? It helps inform us of their intentions later. And I've learned in contract, as I'm sure many of you have, that some people openly say their intentions, whether you view them as good or bad. They're just very open about them. And so don't ignore your gut. It's not in your head. Things that were non-negotiables were, in our regard for this situation, were the term, our respect clause to our team, and non-solicitation, which hence the situation previous that we just chatted through. And so our respect clauses in contract is simple, treat our team with respect and communication in emails or calls. And, we think of ourselves as a partner to a client's business. When we collaborate intentionally and respectfully, we can accomplish something really meaningful. And without that trust, it's nearly impossible. It's sadly something not all people are utilized as a standard business practice. There's no amount of money that should allow people to disrespect your team. And we've had to have some really difficult and awkward, to say the least, conversations over the years around best practices for what not to talk about in a professional environment with clients. Politics, religion, demographics, and several others. What is normal in some parts of the world or country to talk about are not perceived the same way. And in a professional setting, no one should be uncomfortable to come into work. And so ultimately, what happened with the deal, right? You're probably wondering, where did it go? We didn't budge. We didn't budge on our non-negotiables. We lost a significant amount of revenue, but we could sleep soundly at night. And there is no amount of money that should change that. And there's no amount of money that can really change your values and make you shift. And so the few times that we've tried to be flexible, we've learned the hard way. You may not pay up front, but you pay in the long run, and it's just not worth it. And you end up in the same spot where you started. You may have your team leave, pressure to meet unrealistic requests, or added stress, drama in the business. It's not worth it, I promise. Cut it when you see the signs. Hold steady to your non-negotiables and your values. You'll save yourself and your team from aging quickly and being stressed to the max. And the final example I'll share is politely turning down applicants who aren't aligned to our core values. And this one is probably the hardest out of the situations. I'll make sure to drop some of these into our resources section to help people struggling with this particular issue. There's lots of opportunity to really make sure that you are aligned. So we'll make sure to put those in the resources. As they say, getting the right people on the bus is the most important thing. And without that, nearly nothing else is possible. We get hundreds of applications for just one job posting. And our interview process takes multiple phases. And each step has a check, a safety checkpoint to make sure we are aligned to our values. Now, when I talk about values, it's not something that makes someone a bad person if they don't align to our core values. It just means we're not a fit. We want to make sure when we select someone to join our team that we have the greatest chance of them being happy here, not just to go through the motions, but truly love coming into work and thriving. For example, we did not used to ask what I would consider silly questions during the interview process. They were all really very formal and stiff, which is not how we operate as an organization day to day. And so we were trying to fit into what we thought interview questions should be. But when those people arrived, there was such a disjointment. They really expected a formal workplace and they weren't happy. They were uncomfortable with the level of fun, jokes, gifts, and day-to-day human interactions. They really had preferred a more siloed work environment, which doesn't make them a bad person. They just have a different work style. And so once we realized we need to show more of what our day-to-day personality was like, we really started to think about what our interview questions should be. And so we changed them to things like, how would you rate these in order of importance, variety of daily work, growth potential, and company culture? Or if you were a character on any TV show, who would it be and why? How would your best friend describe you? What's your biggest pet peeve? What's something you learned recently? And how people answered and if people answered the questions made a huge difference. Some people openly said they thought the questions were odd, didn't know, or just plain ignored answering them. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's all about, are we a fit both ways? It's not a one-way street. And so one final thought on this topic is make sure you give them the opportunity to ask you truly open questions. I'm a firm believer in the only surprises I like are birthdays. No one wins if you're not honest and transparent by being upfront. So all this to say, saying no can lead to positive things, a happier team and workplace. Again, think of uncomfortable situations as positive opportunities. Saying no can be a positive thing and help give you the chance to find your business happy. Those tiny guttural reactions are all part of the journey and they'll help guide you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Finding Business Happy podcast. Until next time, see you soon. Thank you for listening to Finding Business Happy with me, Janelle McGrath, the founder of Market Veep. If you want a roadmap to finding and keeping your business happy, download our free guide now at marketveep.com/happy.